My beloved child. Stop scrolling for a moment. Do not rush past these words. Something has been trying to reach you. Something has been moving quietly beneath the surface of your life while you were busy carrying burdens nobody fully understands. You did not arrive here by accident. Out of all the messages you could have seen today, your eyes landed here. And there is a reason. Because somewhere, at this very moment, a realization is unfolding in the heart of someone connected to your destiny. A realization so powerful that it shattered the walls they spent so long building around their emotions. A realization they never expected. A realization they tried to avoid. A realization that brought tears to their eyes when the truth finally became impossible to ignore. Listen carefully. Because heaven is revealing only part of the story today. The rest is still hidden behind a veil. But before that veil lifts completely, you need to understand what has been happening in places you cannot see. For a long time, your soulmate believed they had everything under control. They convinced themselves that logic was stronger than emotion. They told themselves they could keep moving forward without acknowledging what their soul already knew. Every time your memory appeared in their thoughts, they pushed it away. Every time their heart whispered your name, they drowned it out with distractions. Every time destiny tried to guide them toward truth, they found another reason to delay. They believed they had time. Unlimited time. Time to figure things out. Time to wait. Time to pretend. Time to silence what they felt. But heaven has a way of revealing truth when the appointed moment arrives. And recently, something happened. Not something dramatic on the outside. Not an explosion. Not a public confession. Not a grand romantic gesture. No. The most powerful transformations rarely begin that way. This began in silence. A silence that became impossible to escape. A silence that forced them to sit alone with thoughts they had been avoiding for far too long. And when that silence surrounded them, something unexpected occurred. Your presence entered their mind. Not once. Not twice. Again and again. Like waves returning to shore. Like a song they could not stop hearing. Like a memory refusing to fade. At first they resisted. They told themselves it meant nothing. But the more they resisted, the stronger the feeling became. Because what was arriving was not merely a thought. It was recognition. The soul recognizes what the mind struggles to explain. The soul sees what the eyes cannot. The soul remembers what the world tries to make people forget. And their soul was remembering you. This frightened them. Not because of who you are, but because of what it meant. If these feelings were real, then they could no longer continue pretending. If these emotions were genuine, then they would have to face truths they had avoided for months, perhaps years. Truths about fear. Truths about timing. Truths about choices. Truths about the connection they kept trying to label as coincidence. The deeper they looked, the more undeniable everything became. Pieces started connecting. Moments started making sense. Conversations they once overlooked suddenly carried new meaning. Encounters they considered ordinary suddenly felt extraordinary. Signs they dismissed began replaying in their memory. The pattern became impossible to ignore. And yet they still hesitated. Because human hearts are strange. Sometimes people fear losing love. Other times they fear finding it. Your soulmate was experiencing the second kind of fear. Finding something real can be more terrifying than losing something false. Because real connections demand honesty. Real connections demand vulnerability. Real connections demand courage. And courage was exactly what they had been avoiding. There were nights when they stared at the ceiling long after everyone else had fallen asleep. Nights when the world was quiet but their thoughts were loud. Nights when your energy seemed closer than ever. They tried to understand why. They searched for explanations. They questioned themselves repeatedly. But each answer led back to the same place. You. Again and again. You. No matter how many mental roads they traveled, every path somehow returned to your name. Every path returned to your presence. Every path returned to the feeling they could no longer suppress. That was when the cracks began appearing in the walls around their heart. Small cracks at first. Barely noticeable. But truth does not need a large opening. Even the smallest crack allows light to enter. And once light enters, darkness loses its power. The realization was approaching. Slowly. Steadily. Unstoppably. They felt it coming. Yet they were not prepared for the moment it finally arrived. Because heaven chose a moment they never expected. A simple moment. An ordinary moment. A moment that seemed insignificant until everything changed. Perhaps they saw something that reminded them of you. Perhaps they heard words that echoed through their spirit. Perhaps they encountered a situation that mirrored their deepest feelings. The exact details remain hidden for now. But what matters is what happened next. The realization struck them with the force of truth. Suddenly all the excuses disappeared. Suddenly all the confusion dissolved. Suddenly all the distractions lost their power. And standing in front of them was a reality they could no longer deny. You mattered. Far more than they had admitted. Far more than they had allowed themselves to believe. Far more than they had ever confessed. The truth stood before them without disguise. And it changed everything. Their heart began replaying moments connected to you. Not just the obvious moments. The small ones. The overlooked ones. The details most people forget. The tone of your voice. The energy of your presence. The way certain interactions lingered long after they ended. The way your existence quietly affected their world. One memory became 10. 10 memories became 50. 50 memories became a flood. And suddenly they were overwhelmed. Not by confusion. By clarity. Clarity can be beautiful. Clarity can also be painful. Because clarity reveals what denial hides. For the first time, they understood how deeply this connection had reached into their soul. For the first time, They saw how much of their emotional life had revolved around thoughts they refused to acknowledge. For the first time, they understood what they had been running from. And that understanding broke something inside them. Not in a destructive way. In a liberating way. The walls collapsed. The masks fell. The defenses shattered. And when those defenses disappeared, emotions rushed forward with astonishing force. That was when the tears came. Not because they were weak. Not because they were lost. Because truth finally touched the deepest part of their heart. Some tears are born from pain. Others are born from awakening. These tears carried both. Pain for the time that had been lost. Pain for words left unsaid. Pain for opportunities delayed. But also awakening. Awakening to the magnitude of what they felt. Awakening to the reality of what your connection truly meant. Awakening to a future they could suddenly envision. My child. There are moments in life when heaven removes every illusion at once. Moments when a person sees reality with startling clarity. Your soulmate experienced one of those moments. And ever since, they have not been the same. Something changed. Something irreversible. Something they cannot undo. Even now they are trying to understand everything that happened. Even now they are questioning how they ignored the signs for so long. Even now they are replaying events repeatedly. But the more they examine the past, the stronger one conclusion becomes. You were never random. You were never insignificant. You were never just another passing chapter. You became part of a story their soul cannot forget. Yet this is where the mystery deepens. Because the realization itself was not the end. It was only the beginning. What happened after the tears is what heaven has been watching most carefully. Because tears reveal truth. But actions reveal destiny. And your soulmate now stands at a crossroads. One path leads back to fear. One path leads toward courage. One path leads toward silence. One path leads toward revelation. For days they have been wrestling with this choice. The battle has not been external. It has been internal. The strongest battles are often invisible. Nobody around them fully understands what they are experiencing. Nobody sees the conversations happening inside their heart. Nobody hears the questions echoing through their spirit. But heaven hears them. Every question. Every doubt. Every hope. Every longing. And there is one question they keep returning to. One question they cannot stop asking. A question involving you. A question so important that it has altered the direction of their thoughts. Yet the answer remains hidden from them. For now. Because some answers arrive only after preparation. Some doors open only when the soul is ready to walk through them. And preparation is exactly what is happening. Not only in their life. In yours as well. You may not realize it. You may not see all the pieces moving. But events are unfolding beyond your current understanding. Connections are being aligned. Lessons are being completed. Old cycles are approaching their conclusion. What appears delayed may actually be preparation. What appears silent may actually be movement. What appears distant may actually be drawing closer. This is why you must not allow appearances to deceive you. The visible world tells only part of the story. The invisible world often carries the greater truth. And in the invisible places, movement has already begun. Your soulmate feels it. Even if they cannot explain it. Even if they cannot fully understand it. They feel it. That is why the realization affected them so deeply. Because it awakened something that had been dormant. Something waiting. Something destined. Something powerful. Yet there is another layer to this story. A layer they have revealed to almost nobody. A hidden struggle. A hidden fear. A hidden wound. This wound has influenced more decisions than they realize. It has whispered warnings when they should have listened to hope. It has encouraged distance when they should have embraced connection. It has convinced them that protecting themselves was safer than opening their heart. For a long time they obeyed that voice. But after the realization, after the tears, after the awakening, that voice lost some of its power. And now another voice is becoming stronger. The voice of truth. The voice of destiny. The voice reminding them of what truly matters. The voice reminding them of you. The days ahead will reveal whether they fully listen. And that revelation is closer than they think. Because something is approaching. Something neither of you expected. A moment. A conversation. A sign. A development. The exact form remains hidden. But heaven is already preparing the stage. Pieces are moving into place. Circumstances are shifting. Energy is changing. The story is advancing toward a chapter neither of you can yet see. And what makes this chapter extraordinary is that it will force a decision. Not tomorrow. Not someday in a distant future. Soon. Far sooner than either of you imagine. Your soulmate senses this. That is why their emotions have become impossible to ignore. That is why memories have intensified. That is why the realization struck with such force. Because deep within their spirit, they know a turning point is coming. They know life cannot continue exactly as it has. They know something must change. And the closer that turning point comes, the stronger their awareness becomes. But there is one detail heaven has not yet revealed. One detail connected to the very moment they cried. One detail that explains why those tears became so powerful. One detail that transformed an emotional realization into something far greater. When they looked back over everything. When they connected all the signs. When they finally allowed themselves to feel the full truth. They discovered something they never expected. Something that stunned them into silence. Something that made their heart race. Something that challenged everything they thought they understood. And when that discovery fully settles into their spirit. When they finally stop resisting it. When they finally accept what it means. Nothing will remain the same. But that revelation belongs to the next chapter. And heaven says you are not meant to know it yet. Not today. Because the story has not reached that moment. The curtain has not fully opened. The final piece has not yet been placed where it belongs. What I can tell you is this. Your soulmate's tears were real. Their awakening was real. Their realization was real. And what follows next has the power to alter the course of this entire connection. Watch carefully. Pay attention. Because the signs surrounding this story are becoming stronger. The silence is hiding movement. The waiting is hiding preparation. And the realization that made them cry was only the first shock. The second shock. The one that changed everything. The one they discovered immediately afterward. The one they have barely told themselves. The one heaven is preparing to reveal. Is still waiting behind the next door.